The monthly review of POA Board actions is produced and presented by the volunteers at Tellico Village Broadcasting.
Hello, I'm Betty Purvis, and welcome to this edition of the POA Board Update. We have with us today our Board President, Bruce Johnson. I'd like to welcome you, Bruce, and thank you for coming in.
Good morning, Betty. How are you doing?
We're
this
good.
Summer, I guess still spring, but with 90-something degree weather, it feels like summer.
Oh, it sure does.
Let's talk about the board workshop, which
Oh,
is way
okay.
back at the 1st of May.
Sure.
I know time flies and we forget these things, but there were
That's true.
a few things in that workshop that I'd like to mention.
Okay.
First off was that Hopewell Fire Department, who
Yes.
services our Kahiti neighborhood, they came in and gave us an update on how many calls, how many fires, what they do when they respond, their times that they respond, and they also came in to thank us for supporting them. Well, you know, we support our Tellico Village Volunteer Fire Department here in the main part of the village, and then because that's a different county, we don't service that area with that fire department down there. So we depend on Hopewell. It's also a volunteer fire department. They came in, and for them to help us in that community get a lower rating for insurance, there were some things that they need to do, and one of them was they need some software that they can track numbers and get actual numbers, because that goes into being audited. So we look to support them. We have our golf tournament down there, as you well know, and you know, they come in, briefed us, and gave us a good update, and we will continue to support them. So that's a good thing. You know, those folks down there are doing a good job for us. They support us, they respond for us, and that's a good thing. We want the whole Tellico Village to feel secure when it comes to fire and health and emergency situations.
Excellent. Excellent.
We also had one of our board members, Carla Johnson, our newest one. She and Pat White have been working on what's called First Impressions. They're working with our marketing team, and that is, you'll see some of the things going on in the village, like cleaning up around our restaurants, the entrances, the bulletin boards that you see, cleaning those up so that they look good, so that when we have visitors come in, and as we go into a restaurant, it looks more appealing to us instead of just the thing. So be on the lookout for that. There you'll see some things that are happening. They'll be published in the Telegram, and they'll be out on our website. But we're going to be starting to clean up bulletin boards, and some of the things that are on display in those restaurants are going to be coming down, and we're going to be making the entrances to our facilities more appealing to the eye, if you will.
It's a little thing, but it has the right impression.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And and last thing, I guess, two things that happened in the workshop was we had some complaints, rightfully so, about the permits that we were charging for tree removal. The board took that under advisement and voted, I believe it was 6-0 to rescind that. So the fee that we were requiring for tree removal is no longer being applied.
Great.
And so as a result of that, we do wish that people would be selective in the trees that they cut down. This is a beautiful place. Trees add to it, but sometimes we know that trees can be a hindrance, and so we ask you to be judicial in taking those down. And also you have to remember, if you live on the lake, there's another party involved called TVA that you have to work with in that regard on those too. And last but not least, I've talked to you about the Political Education Committee.
Yes.
The board approved that committee, and we have had our first meeting since then, and it is on the way. And the idea behind that is for the committee to understand what's going on in the village, our needs, what we do. They also need to understand the interaction between us and the local government as well as state government, and then to help us to educate our members, citizens here in the village, as to what's going on, and so that when it comes election time, they can be more informed and vote in a way that hopefully it will help the village. So those are the things that we covered in the workshop.
Those are important.
Exactly. And so I wanted to cover those. So now we're on to the board meeting, right?
Okay, now where are we on the board meeting? What would you like to tell us?
Well, the first thing that happened was, back last fall we elected Laurel Russell
Yes.
to District 21.
Doing a good job.
He is doing an excellent job. And when he came here, we had some meet and greets, and we got the meeting. He got to know our needs, talked to us one-on-one, found out what we're doing. And like I said before, with this political education thing, there are certain things that we feel like that local government and state government ought to be doing to help us in the village. It's not as if we're in dire straits. It's just we ought to be able to enjoy the benefits of what we do as
Our tax
dollars.
right.
So we went to the state and we went to Laurel and asked him if he would take a look at helping us to get a tax exemption on purchases we make in our public services for safety and for other matters. And he was able to get legislation passed that
Great.
would give us a break, and we won't have to pay up to a certain limit. Like we won't have to pay taxes on, I believe the numbers, purchases up to say $350,000 to $400,000. So that will save us in that regard. That's a step in the right direction for us. There's other actions that we want him to take. He is very familiar with the village. He comes out and he meets people, and he eats dinner a lot over at the Baptist church when they're having their Wednesday meals. And so he likes the people in the village. He lives very close to Kahiti, and so he's very active in trying to help us, and we are very appreciative of that. And he was here, and we recognize him for that and thanked him for it, because we feel like if we work with him, he'll help us in the future.
Yes.
So that was a big kickoff to that meeting, if you will.
Excellent.
Yes.
That was a good positive step.
Very positive.
Yeah.
We enjoy working with him, and we're looking forward to working with him throughout his career there.
Great. Well, let's go on to more serious things, the audit report.
Well, audits can get very serious. They can be, but lucky for us, we have a good accounting staff.
Yes.
We have Parker Owen, who is our CFO, that has guys and ladies and gentlemen working for him that are very conscientious, and they do their job and they do it right. We did ask Coulter and Justice to come in and do an audit. They've done it for us, I believe, for at least the last 3 years now.
Right.
And so they came in this time and they examined everything they needed to examine, and we got a clean audit.
Great. Again.
And with no revised statements or anything of that nature. So it's always good when you get a clean audit. It's not good when you don't, because you're in deep trouble then. And so luckily for us, we got a clean audit, and so Parker and you guys, pat yourself on the back and keep it going. Is all we can say.
That's right.
Keep it going.
Right direction.
Right.
Yeah. All right. What about Public Works? Do we have an update on Public Works? What's happening there?
Yeah, we had Jeff Gagley. He's always the man of the hour when it comes to Public Works and telling us what's going on. Needless to say, we've got some big projects going on. We have obviously the two clubhouses.
Yes.
If you've been around them lately, or if you've looked on the Telegram or on our website, you'll see pictures out there. Both of them are under roof. One of them has completely shingle, and that's Kahiti.
Yes, it looks good.
And they're beginning to work inside.
Yes.
And I took a tour of both of them, and it's amazing where we are with those. And the one at Tokwa, it's under wood. And they're looking to put maybe the tar paper or felt or whatever you call it down, and then they'll be putting the metal roof on here in a little bit, maybe in the next couple of weeks. I did have a guy that I saw over the weekend. He basically told me that he'd been in construction for all of his life. Well, not all his life, but his mature life. And he said he saw a lot of buildings, seen a lot of buildings that under construction, that finished, whatnot. he told me that he was very pleased with Kahiti.
It really looks nice.
It does, and it tied in, and it's going to look like, hopefully, when they're through with it, that it was always supposed to have been there. So,
absolutely. It really, the design is very nice.
Well, thank you, and I think that most people will be pleased with that when we get there. Now, he did also talk to us about the Wellness Center. You know, we've done a lot of work over there last year, and we'll do some more this year. But the biggest thing this year is trying to decide if we're ready to put a new roof on it. We know we need a new roof. It's the original roof, and so we got to be replaced. I've been up there myself. Probably shouldn't have been, but I was up there, and the roof is kind of spongy, and so it needs some work. And so we're going out with bids. They're going to come back in with bids for shingles as well as metal, and then the board will make a decision on which one of the one. And our current plan is to have that done when the wellness center is closed for normal maintenance, and I believe it's August. So we're moving on there, and then we've had a couple studies that are underway. One for our sewer system. We're trying to see if that sewer system that we have will carry us to build out, and that report should be finished in the next several weeks. And then we'll see where we go, what kind of maintenance plan we'll have to go with that, and then we're doing the water tank. We're going to put a water tank next year. It's in the budget. We're going to install it next year. But this year you have to find where you're going to put it and to design it, and that's ongoing as well. So Public Works really busy.
Yes,
so, Public
Services do a lot for us.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, good. Well, let's move on to HOA. What was their report?
Well, HOA is always HOA. They do a great job over there, and we're really appreciative of them and what they do. I attended their general meeting. I attended their general meeting this past week, and it was a very exciting time. We were able to do a joint award ceremony for some of our firefighters and one of our villagers. Who his wife, he had actually cut himself, and severe cut, and they were able, essentially, they saved his life, the wife and our firefighters, and so we felt like that was they deserved, and were presented with a new award that we came up with called the Tellico Village Humanitarian Award, and we presented that. Speaking of that, they do have another general meeting coming up, and that will be in June, June 25th. But before that, they have their social.
June 20th, I think it is.
June 20th? Okay, yeah. Can't even read my own writing sometimes. And then June the 11th, I think, is their social.
Right.
But also for the people that are new in the village, I think in July the 18th, somewhere in July, they will be having an orientation meeting. So if you haven't attended one of those, I would encourage you to do so. They have a lot of information.
Very good information. Important.
So
yeah.
They just continue to just roll right on. They've got a good group of people. They seem to have their finger to the pulse, and they know what to do, and they do it, and they do a good job of it.
Great. So HOA, let's move to the new people in the village, new villagers.
All 1,300 of them. You know,
amazing,
isn't it?
Absolutely amazing.
But if you keep up with it, we built last 3 years about 150 houses, and so we have a lot of new people in the village. What better way to get to know the village than to join new villagers? I know my experience when we first came here, got into new villagers, and actually our best friends in the village are people that we met when we were in new villagers. And if you get in new villagers and you participate like you know, they offer you to, you won't be bored. I promise you that.
Absolutely not.
You know?
No loneliness there.
Nope. And they do a great job. And I think that they're staying active, very active.
Very active.
So that's a good thing, because, you know, moving to a strange place, especially, that's what we seem to all have in common, is we're all from someplace else.
Right.
We leave our loved ones behind in their other locations, but very quickly you meet people here and you develop friendships, and it just makes the transition a lot easier. we're glad that we have a new villagers
Oh,
organization.
they're a wonderful organization.
Yes, they
Yes.
are. Okay.
Andy Fox, AWE, the restaurants.
Andy comes in and always gives us a good report, good, bad, or different. In this case, it was some good and some bad, potentially bad. But he tells us that our restaurants are doing fine, especially Kahiti's doing well, Tanassi's doing well. But what's not doing so well is the Yacht Club lunch. And it's doing well at night. It's doing very good at night.
Yes.
But you know, we opened up the Yacht Club for lunch after we had to close Tokwa to take some of the stress. But with a combination of the Tanassi and some of the newer restaurants that we have opening up in the village or just outside the village, you know, there's only so many people going to lunch. So we're doing the Yacht Club thing on a month-to-month basis. We'll monitor it, and if it gets to the point where it's just not cost effective to leave it open. I know cost is not everything, but you can't lose a whole lot. We can offer a service, but service comes with a cost, and if it gets to be too much, then we figure that there's other venues that they can have lunch at, then we'll monitor that and keep an eye on it. But right now, it's not being well attended.
No, we went to brunch, Sunday brunch.
Did you?
Oh, what a beautiful sight.
Yes.
Food was delicious, well presented, and it's just a sparkling sight to be there.
I think we're very lucky to have the Yacht Club, and I especially love to go there in the evenings and have their meals and look at the lake. We're blessed in that regard.
Yes, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Jim West, golf. How is he doing?
Well, he's dried out. You know, he
thank
complained last year
goodness.
about 80-something days
I
of rain.
know.
I said, dude, lately,
The
though,
weatherman.
Yeah, and before we know it, he'll have to be irrigating. That's a switch, isn't it? But no, they're doing extremely well. They've come up with a whole lot of new programs. They've taken some limits off on like vacation golf, and that has just increased by like 45% or so, or something like that. And they've got this new thing going that I think the next one is this Wednesday night. It's called Suds, Putting, Chip Putt, Suds, and Food, or something like that. And they go down to Tanassi with that big green out there, and they putt and chip and just have a lot of fun. And then they bring in a truck. I think the last time it was a taco truck, and people are just loving it. And there's a lot of people out there. So if you haven't participated, I encourage you to do so. But a lot of new programs like that, and the afternoon golf is taking off. So I think that we've finally gotten the message across that you know, to enjoy golf in Tellico Village, you don't always have to be a traditionalist. You don't have to worry about your handicap. You don't have to worry about whether you put 3 balls in the water or 3 in the woods. You can just go out there and have fun and enjoy the golf course, and at the same time that it reduces the amount that we have to subsidize. So we encourage all you folks out there that don't necessarily like to play a full 18-hole, play 3 or 4 or 5, or play 18 or play 9, or just come out and chip and putt and enjoy some suds and some food.
Nice.
You know? So yeah.
Have fun.
Yeah, exactly. That's the whole thing, is to have fun.
That's right. So we've talked about all the fun things. Let's
Okay.
talk about Kevin Ellsworth. He's going to talk to us about our finances.
Yep. In general, Kevin is new.
Yes.
He came to us from the Boys and Girls Clubs of America in the Knoxville area. He was over that, and that's near and dear to my heart.
That's a wonderful
I practically grew
organization.
up in a boys club.
Well,
and,
it's a wonderful
you know,
organization.
but I was glad to get Kevin in here. I think he's going to be great for us.
Mm-hmm.
And sure enough, first out of the chute, he gives a good report. He basically tells us that our expenses are down, the revenue's up, and all that. He goes through all that and tells us like the memberships and the rec center are up for families, and they're up a little bit for individuals. But he keeps us posted on all that's going on.
Good.
But you know, he keeps reminding us too, is that while the majority of our capital expenditures have been made,
Yes.
There's still some out there
Yes.
to be made, like the roof on the wellness center or
Right.
whatever. And but he keeps us posted and tells us, and basically, if you were to test the winds, if you will, the winds are blowing good for us right now.
Great.
But you can't get too excited this time of year because there's lag. There's lags and bills coming in. But
Yes.
generally speaking, they've got their fingers on the pulse and they know what to do to make sure that our cash is good and that our expenditures within budget. And that's where we want to be at the end of the year. We want to have a good cash balance left over, and we also want to be able to say that we actually executed a budget the way the board approved it back last fall.
Talk about budget.
He's good, yes.
Let's talk about Parker's report. What did he have to say? I'm sure he had good things.
Well, he did remind us, as we talked about on culture and justice, he reminded us that was there, and he also reminded us that the audit is out on the website. So
Okay.
if you want to go out and get the audit, the financials that went with that audit, you can do that. So it's out there. We always make that stuff available, and just like
Yes.
on all of our meetings, if you want to
Transparency.
exactly, and if you want to see it, go out on the website and take a look at it, and it's out there. But Parker's, again, he goes through the capital acquisitions. He reminded us that most of those have been made, but we still had a few. We buy a mower here or something like that there, and one of the things they told us about going back to golf was that we have been buying these big mowers that drive out through there, and you've seen them if you've been on or around the golf courses. Well, this year we switched. We bought a tractor, and then we bought some mowers that we pull,
Oh,
and that saves us about $40-something thousand or something like that. So they're always looking for ways to get the most bang for our buck, if you will, and that's a good thing, because what we don't spend, we put in reserve accounts. And those reserve accounts then later on help us to build things like the Toka Clubhouse, the Kahiti Clubhouse without borrowing money.
nice.
So, and he also talked a little bit about a reserve study that we were doing. There's a lot of people come in here and they see our budget, and they come from places like California or Texas or whatever, where the law requires them to do certain kind of things.
Oh.
Fortunately for us, Tennessee doesn't have that kind of law, but that doesn't relieve us of the responsibility of managing our money properly and,
Right.
and having money in there for acquisitions so that we don't have to go borrow money, because no matter whether you borrowing money is not always a good thing, but sometimes you have to do it, and we like to do as little as we can, but we do. So Parker's on top of it. He's a good man, does a good job for us, and we're glad to have him.
Great.
Yep.
So is there anything else you wanted to report to our residents?
Yeah, just the fact that there's a lot of our people in the village have dogs, as you well know, and
Right.
where do they get their exercise? They can't go to the wellness center, so they go to the doggy park. And
All
so
right.
that dog park down there has served us well, but there's some concerns that it's on property that a bank owns, and somewhere along the line, because we're expanding down that way with the neighborhood, et cetera,
True.
that they're afraid that site's going to be lost. So they're beginning to get us, the board, as well as them, to thinking about what we're going to do if that dog park has to close. And we've looked at several other sites. We will start looking at those. A couple of them require that we have to work with TVA to get permission and things like that. But we don't want to be caught in arrears, if you will, that one day we have a park and the next day we don't. So
Right.
we want to be prepared. And so Bruce Dillingham came in, talked to us about it, and so we're beginning to monitor that. And we'll work with them to make sure that we have a park somewhere for the dogs to rip and run, if you will.
Nice.
Yep.
Nice. Well, but this is not something immediate. It's
not.
something
So
in the future.
don't get worried that the
No.
dog park's going away. It's just that, anytime that you're on leased land or what, you always have the risk of it, the owner
Going
doing what
away.
they want to do.
Sure.
And we just want to make sure that we can plan accordingly, and that's what we're
Excellent.
doing. Yeah.
Well, I think that's a wrap, Bruce. What do you think?
That's enough.
That's enough.
Yeah.
That's
Hey, we get started again next week. you know.
that's true. That's true.
So anyway, it was a good May.
Well, I want to thank you for coming in,
sure.
Bruce, and thank you for all this excellent information, keeping us informed as to what's going on in our village. And this is Betty Purvis for the POA Update. Thank you very much. Teleco Broadcasting thanks you for watching.